Hello everyone, this is Leslie Cornwell, Certified Nurse Midwife with Midwifery Business Consultation. This section has to do with hiring, training, and firing staff. Legal disclaimer we put at the beginning of all of our presentations. This information is for general and educational use only, not intended to substitute for professional, clinical, or legal advice. We strive to keep our information as accurate and timely as possible, but make no promises and guarantees of your local unique situation. Objectives for this course are you're going to be able to verbalize what is the difference with the hiring process, the firing process, the training process as a business owner. Some of it has to do with regulations and reducing your risk of, for example, wrongful termination, recruiting the right people so that you have the best people on your team. You're training them so they have great resources, tools, step-by-step accountability of what is going to be expected of them. We're going to talk about the hiring process, the interviewing process, the paperwork involved, the different types of ways you can hire your employees, and the value and understanding the importance of having good recruitment processes, training processes. If people are not performing how you want them to be, there's accountability, there's disciplinary action, there's clear step-by-step guidelines of how you're going to address problems and issues with your employees, and how is the best way to fire a staff in the best way you can with a respectful relationship afterwards. So why is this important? Midwives are really good at catching babies. We are terrible at hiring staff, training staff, firing staff. We become their friends, let things slide sometimes, or they just don't know how to exactly do things how we want them to be because we didn't do the responsible thing as being an employee-employer relationship of giving them the tools, the resources, the clear expectation. We hire our friends, we have a great vision in mind, but we don't have the business structure in place for if those problems or if something arises that we just didn't address ahead of time. So hiring people, recruiting the best of the best, knowing the job descriptions, what do you want them to do? When do you want them to show up? How do you want them to do their job and come to you if there's an issue or problem? Those are really important discussions to have, and clear expectations. It's a professional relationship. It's not a personal relationship. We don't chat with our friends and family on cell phones when we're at work, when our breaks are, what we're going to do at work, if there's downtime, what projects need to be addressed, what is their purpose and role with the company. You want to have clear expectations. And then we're going to have a really good discussion with human resources, with your office manager, with you, patient complaints, safety issues, people showing up late, people doing care standards that are not in line with your mission and value and your policies. You want to address them professionally, non-discriminatory, and consistently. And so we're going to talk about how you do every step of that process. So let's go to the basics of just hiring staff. You can hire independent contractors, you can hire employees, which are W-2. There's different ways you can do it. You can obviously look for your friends and people in the area with a skill set. You can put a job posting up there. You have to know just what exactly do you want to hire from day one and long term. Who are the key people you want on your team? Typically with a home birth practice, you want right away an office manager, receptionist, birth assistant. With a birth center, you're going to have a lot more staff from day one, medical assistants, additional providers, you're going to have quality, you're going to have a medical director. So you need to know who needs to be on your team, what are the different job descriptions they are going to have, how are you going to fill each of those roles. So a birth assistant, do they have to be a nurse? Are they going to be a doula? Do they have to have experience in the birth labor support role first? Are you going to train them? What certifications do they need to have? How are they going to get those? You have to really think of step by step who you need on your team right away. A lot of times you want an office manager right away because they're going to hire the rest of your staff. They're going to know your mission really well. They're going to be like your personal assistant for the business being successful. So you want to really understand the different types of people you can hire. You want to know how to find them. If you're going to look on ZipRecruiter, Indeed, you're going to hire friends and family. You're going to look for referrals. You're going to put it on a local Facebook group. Where are you going to find these people? How are you going to interview? How are you going to offer them a job package? Are they going to be 1099 independent contractor and work at their own pace from home, like a marketer or a biller? Or are they going to have to be on site, split call with you? They're going to do office, they're going to do birth, they're going to do home visits. You have to have very clear understanding of what you want and what they get. If they're hourly, what are they going to do during their hourly time? If they're salary, what is full-time, what is part-time? These are things as a business owner you have to have clear expectations of, because your budgets are going to need it, your staff accountability is going to need it. You don't want vagueness to cause tension in your practice because there wasn't clear expectations for how you hired people, what their role was, what your mission, what you wanted them to do. So look at what maybe you're already an established practice. You have to look at what the staff can handle and what they can't handle. If they're tired and exhausted and the practice is growing busier than they can keep up with, you need to hire additional staff. You need to be able to know objectively, where are these benchmarks of, okay, we're going to add a second midwife when we hit 5 births and new clients for 6 months from now. We're going to hire a receptionist once the office manager can't answer the phones anymore. We're going to hire XYZ person on our team. Maybe we're going to do marketing internal, but once we hit a revenue of X amount, or me as the business owner, I'm going to start doing it. I'm going to start doing my billing myself. But then as we get to a certain volume, we're going to hire out a biller or switch the biller from an outsourced company to internal once we hit a certain level. So you have to have an idea of when you're going to have certain people join your team. You're going to get a second person on your team. Maybe you have a medical assistant, and now there's too many midwives. The medical assistant can't keep up with supporting them during the office day. You need to be able to understand the different steps, and every company and every situation is different. A home birth practice, a birth center practice, a women's health clinic, a hospital-based practice, they're all going to have different needs and expectations of how they're going to grow their practices. But I stress, as business owners, you want to leverage the experts around you. The midwife is the best person to be taking the midwife clinical skills. The office manager is the best one to manage the day-to-day operations. The midwife shouldn't be mowing the lawn. They shouldn't be doing the snow. They shouldn't be doing billing and marketing, because your goal is to be a business owner, not self-employed. You don't want to be doing everything within your company. You want to make sure your fee schedule is accurate to support these additional staff joining your team. You got to be good at delegating. You've got to be good at knowing what you can do and what your people on your team can do, and holding accountability to those projects and those things being done. And so if you're going to have someone, are you going to have a bookkeeper? Are you going to have bookkeeping in-house? Are you going to have your office manager ordering inventory? When is that going to be done? You have to have an everyday task and flow that when you hire staff, that's part of the training, that's part of the resources you're providing them as a business owner so that they can be successful at their job. The last thing you want is them calling you all the time. Hey, Leslie, where's this? Hey, Leslie, I don't know how to do XYZ procedure. I've never done that before. I don't know how to answer a phone call. I don't know how to interpret this lab results. I don't know how to set up for a birth. I don't know how to clean the birth center after a birth occurs. Like, you should have policies and protocols and training manuals to make sure that your team is successful once you hire the right people. You need to figure out who makes more sense. Maybe the birth assistants make more sense to be freelance, independent contractors. They do a rotational call coverage for the birth demands, and then your staff on site, the office managers, the midwives, maybe it makes more sense to have them part-time, full-time versus subcontractors with your. You want to look at the quality of the services, the products, the things that the people are bringing to the table. You want to, sometimes you have to rush to hire somebody, but your goal would be to be proactive, to interview for a while, to find the best candidate, give them some time for training. You want to have an emergency account. You want to have a training budget. You want to have cushions financially so you're not ever feeling stressed and rushed that, oh my goodness, my midwife partner left and I need somebody now. Oh my goodness, we need 2 people, but we don't have the money to hire a second midwife yet because the money from the birth hasn't come in yet. So you don't want to get in this vicious cycle. You want to have time on your side. You want to get people credentialed with insurance, get them a license, get them the opportunity to train and be strong on your team. Look at who you need for vital staff. Don't hire a bunch of extra people. Think of who are the key members and then go in stages once you objectively know where you have to be and realistically how much does it cost for each of those staff members, so you're budgeting appropriately. So you want to make sure you're promoting people that have the skills and expanding as your team expands and they fit the certain skills and roles. Maybe You hire them initially as a receptionist, but then they finish their doula training, they finish the birth assistant training, and now they want to be a birth assistant on the team. They now want to be your office manager because the last office manager left. So you promote people internally that fit the skill sets and have devotion to the company, and then usually you do the new entry positions for people that have less responsibility because they just don't know your practices. So there's always going to be lots of work to do. There's always going to be a situation that there's not enough staff. And so you always have to prioritize. You have to say what's most important, what's a project, what's a vision in the future. Is it something we have to get done right away, or is this something that can just wait? You don't want to always be putting out fires, but you also don't want to be having them work on something 2 years from now when there's things right now that should be done. So you want to be hiring people, not giving them too much to do right from the beginning. You want them to do their role, responsibility, because if they're stressed out and exhausted, they're not going to be on your team very long. If you're paying someone 10, 15 bucks an hour and they're working their butt off, they're working from home, they never get to leave when you told them they get to leave, they're exhausted, they're stressed out, we're not going to have a good working relationship and a culture and environment to work for. I stress as midwives, we have to be just as kind and compassionate to our staff as we do our pregnant women we serve. And I don't see that always happening. And so our staff, they have families, they have feelings, they have more than just an identity of doing the role with your company. And so we have to, if they're stressed out and something's happening with their family, we have to support them through it. So we tried to make jobs that were as much flexibility for those moms that had kids at home, having a harder time getting a babysitter. Maybe they would just work during the school hours. They would work as soon as they drop their kiddo off to school, and then they would leave after they have to go get their kiddo. So we would try to accommodate the best we could for some of our roles that had more flexibility to them. Obviously, clinical care and birth, you don't, but office, administration, marketing, billing, policies, quality, all those things can have more flexibility. And so if we can help out our staff, they're going to enjoy their jobs better, they're going to appreciate it. So there's things to think about when you're hiring people. You need to determine where the need is. How are you going to recruit them? What are the job applications going to look like? What questions are you going to ask during the interview? Doing reference checks. And if you don't find the right person, it's okay. The goal is you start interviewing a couple months in advance before you need them versus you needed them last week and you need somebody now, because you may or may not hire the best candidate for that position. For the training process, you definitely want to make sure some positions will need a week of training, some positions will need 3 months of training based on their experience. So a new grad midwife is going to take a lot more time to get trained than someone that's already has experience in the community-based setting. You have to look at your business and you have to look at what role do you want everybody to play? What are the resources you're creating for them? Is somebody going to directly train them? Well, maybe they're the first person on your team. There's not somebody there to train them. So you're going to train them. You're going to help them make the training manuals, the job descriptions, the processes for the rest of the team. So your goal is to have a combination of strong leaders from the beginning that see your vision, see your long-term mission, and are going to help you fulfill it. They're passionate about what you're doing. You have to have the leadership skills to know how to delegate and know how to onboard them successfully. So there's different things you should train them on. You should train them on their role, the company's mission, how to handle certain situations. If there's a challenge, there's a safety issue, you answer the phone and you're the receptionist, how to take a new intake, how to determine if this is a medical concern that the midwife should talk to, should just take a message, the nurse should talk to him, the medical assistant should talk to him. You really want to make sure you're giving people the tools, the resources. They got to have a laptop, a computer, internet, phone, fax machines, printer, paper, ink, pens. You want to give them the tools and you want to teach them how to use it. Your EHR system, show them how to do it, their role in it, their responsibility for reports, for inputting data, for lab result finding, insurance processing. You want to give them the tools to be successful. These are some of the things that tends to happen if you aren't really training them appropriately or not giving them the tools. People will get low productivity. If you have a bar where you're kind of like, oh, just do your thing, I'm super busy, people tend to just sit in their downtime and play their phone versus they're going to help with a project, because maybe one, you're just too busy to show them what that project is and they don't know they can help with something, or they just they're not going to be as valuable to the team if we're not giving them clear expectations of, these are all the things I want you to do, but if nobody is calling, it's a quieter day in the office, here's some administration things I would love some support with. So it's our responsibility as a business owner to make sure they always have something to do that's within their job description. You want to make sure that they understand the traditional processes of doing things and also ways to solve problems. You don't want them coming to you every time the internet doesn't work. What is the internet company? Who is customer service? They can handle and they can solve day-to-day problems if you give them the right tools and resources. If someone calls and you're not so sure if they fit the criteria of being a patient of the practice, you have a script, you have an etiquette, you have a way to handle those calls and say, you know what, I'm going to talk to the midwife. She's seeing a patient right now. We'll get back to you by the end of the day, and take a note, and in between patients, lunch break, talk to the midwife and then give a message back to the potential client. So you have ways, if there's someone that's stressed out, they're anxious, they're in early labor on the phone, you have a triage, you have a set of protocols that are present so that people can go to. You can have safety issues happen. If you have a new grad midwife and she isn't trained how to handle certain emergency procedures, a shoulder dystocia, prolapse cord, postpartum hemorrhage, she doesn't know where supplies are at the birth center, she doesn't know her chain of command and how to call EMS and where staff's at, that can cause safety issues. So we want to make sure that people have the skills and resources and confidence that they can solve problems on the fly, because it could be 2 in the morning and an issue comes out. Maybe power goes out at the birth center. How do they handle that situation? So you want to be able to develop people in their expertise. What are they passionate about? What are they good at? What do they want to be trained in? What role are they going to fit within the practice? You want to be able to hire people that they fit the skills, they fit the passion and drive. I always stress that I would love to hire somebody that's newer, that has the passion and mission about what we're creating versus they have lots of experience, but I'm not getting the vibe of the passion, because that makes a difference with marketers and billers. They're not going to work as hard for you. They're not going to advocate for the best reimbursement, the best branding of you if they do not understand your company or are passionate about midwifery. So if there's noticeable gaps in their skill set, you need to address it promptly. You need to be objective, you need to be unbiased, you need to have a conversation about it. Our goal is to open up communication, not just to be a delegator and only bring up bad things and just discipline people. Our goal is to have conversations. There's usually problems with systems. There's usually problems with the business structure, not so much the person when it comes to their skill set. We didn't do a good job of hiring. We didn't do a good job of clear expectations. We didn't do a good job of giving them the tools and training to be successful at this position, and so we need to address it. And if it happens over and over again, after you've addressed the learning curve, then you start going down the disciplinary steps. But initially, we have to be as leaders just as accountable as our staff. If mistakes occur, if there's problems, if there's challenges, we have to solve them together. So the firing part is not anybody's favorite, definitely. We have trouble. We become personalized relationships with our staff. Women, we don't like confrontation. That's human nature. Nobody likes to fire staff, and it's a tough decision to do, but sometimes it's necessary. And so you have to think about, when is the point where we should fire somebody? They've been here a long time. They're becoming too comfortable. They're late all the time, even though we've chatted about it. They're being rude to our staff. They're cutting corners of missing labs. They're not following up on things. If there's a lot of just trends happening and you've had over and over conversations, emails, documentation, you go through your disciplinary action list, it may be time to fire somebody. So it's really hard having these conversations. You definitely want to have a detailed disciplinary action step. If we hit 3 strikes, you're out, they have to go. It's a safety issue. They don't have their license anymore. They no longer can, they have a medical problem. They're distracted because they're now doing hospice with their mom. They have a kid that has a significant health issue. We need to address and have a conversation and have a clear policy of the company and the guidelines and the termination process, because you don't ever want to be accused of discrimination and wrongful termination. That's a big deal. Some states it's more restrictive than others, but as a business, and you don't want a bad reputation in the community of like, I didn't do anything wrong and she just let me go. Birth and midwifery is a small group. If you want to hire awesome people, you need to make sure that you train them, you recruit them, and you fire them respectfully, because guess what? You're going to have a harder time getting more people to fill the role locally, because they're going to know the reputation of how it is working for you. So these are different things you need to think about when you're like, should we fire this person? Maybe they should just be in a different job in the company versus it's not good for their work and needs anymore. Maybe they should go from part-time to full-time. Maybe they should have something that's not so much patient care centered, but helping with quality and policies and projects in the backdrops. So you need to think about, should they just be let go from the entire company, or should they be let go from the current position they have? And maybe sometimes it's like they just don't have the passion and drive, and they're outgrown this and they're bored, and you can see it now in their job and their passion and their culture at work. And so giving them a new challenging role, a new opportunity. Maybe you have a new position coming up and you want to promote them because you're just seeing they have potential other ways. Maybe they just finished school. Being a birth assistant isn't making any sense for them, and you've got a midwife position, but if they're a birth assistant and they're not fulfilling their birth assistant role or duty or obligation anymore, maybe they just need to start their own practice and you support them that direction. So you need to have clear expectations of the policies, the protocols, the disciplinary steps. Like, this is what I'm concerned of. Very specific. You've showed up late 3 times. Our policy, here's our tardy policy. If you're past 7 minutes, it's considered tardy. You didn't call, you did a no-show, it's an immediate termination based on our policy. You have clear guidelines that aren't discriminating this person and saying, well, my other colleague who was another midwife on the team did the exact same thing. You didn't fire her, but you fired me. That's when get into trouble. So you need to have a discussion. You need to do it in person to the best of your ability, and you need to be professional, and you need to hear an honest feedback as the business owner when there's exits, that they're able to express their concerns with the company so that you can grow from them. If they're saying, well, I didn't feel like I was successful, you're telling me that I didn't do XYZ, I didn't even know I was supposed to be doing that. Who was supposed to train me? Who was supposed to tell me? I didn't even know that was part of my job. So you want to have a performance plan. You want to have to the point where you know, like, they aren't following the performance plan. They're not improving. We've had clear expectations to follow up in a week, and this still hasn't been addressed. They're still making the same mistakes. The consequences will eventually end up in termination. So you want to be able to look and sign the plan, everybody on the same page. You want to review and touch base and talk to colleagues and have objective feedback. Maybe one person's noticing and complaining about this staff member, but everybody else raves they're amazing. You want to look at the relationship between those 2 staff members. So you got to dig into a situation of as objective as the situation. If they're like, she does a bad job. Well, objectively explain that to me. What is she doing that is a bad job? She's showing up late. She's rude to patients. She's not cleaning up. She's not doing her daily task list that she's responsible for. She just sits and plays games. She's on social media. She's not actually working when she's here. So you want to be very specific what is happening. So there's things to think about when you're hiring, training, and firing staff. And I can't stress this enough. The midwives, you're only as good as the team that's around you. So it's our responsibility to know how to recruit qualified people, get the passion, get the strengths, leverage these wonderful people that are around us, give them the right tools and resources to be successful, give them the opportunity to brainstorm, be part of the team, solve problems, be able to critically fix things when need be. And then when you are having challenges or issues, we can address them in a professional way. We can address them right away when they happen, when they're not over and over again, because it's a lot harder if it's been going on for months and months versus it's a couple times. You've got to address it and discuss it. There may be stuff going on in their personal life that has them distracted, and you need to make a game plan of how they're going to be the best at work and be able to solve their personal things. So it's important that we take step-by-step goals to really be able to hire our staff, train them, and fire them in a way that fits your local and state guidelines, because each state is different. There's more states that are more business friendly and some states that are more employee based friendly. If you're hiring them as 1099 and they're not paying their taxes and you are treating them like an employee, you could be accountable for all their outdated taxes. And so you want to be very clear of how you're hiring them. You've got good, strong contracts. You've got good working relationships in place, and try to protect that personal work balance as much as possible.